with my colleagues, Jacob Guthrie and Brian Johnson, and unfortunately, my colleague Imelda Nava from UCLA wasn't able to join us. So just to give you a little bit of background, LA Unified, and Jacob is closely connected with this work, has an affinity space called the Black Male Educator Network. I think I got the title right. And we were trying to, well, we tapped into that network to get a sense about how to sustain teachers of color. And we did that via a survey. And I'm just thinking, Jacob, I'm going to quote you. Jacob said a little bit ago when we were in our small group, if you don't have a plan for sustaining your teachers, and it doesn't, I think this, I'm going to mess up the quote, that it doesn't, you know, like recruitment's important, and we acknowledge that. And we've been doing that work, but we also needed to think about how we're sustaining people in the profession. And so again, the effort was to, so what information, how might they help us form or think about other affinity spaces for teachers of color in the district? So these were our questions. I think I just summarized them. And what we've pulled out for you, so we have all these graphs around what brought people to teaching and what people in the Black Educator Network said about what keeps them in the profession. But we wanted to pull out some of the open-ended questions so that you could see some of the responses that we received. And so one, I mean, to me, the importance of this space for people, what came out so clearly, and here's some of the words that people used, what called them to this. So a like-minded space, they were looking, I mean, what I felt in my heart was that to be mentored and to mentor others came through really strongly. And then a couple of folks said, I'm Black, that's why I'm here. And then we asked about what conditions needed to be in place. And Jacob and Brian, please chime in on this one. What conditions must be in place for Black male educators and educators of color to feel supported, sustained, and willing to remain in LA Unified? And people talked about support from administrators that came through really clear, and other educators. And then opportunities for growth. One of the things that's interesting about the network is that includes administrators, it includes teachers, it includes paraprofessionals. So folks were looking for people were looking for professional growth. And then there was a very, very strong response around the need for more representation. One of the things that we noticed is that there was a theme around not being understood and a fear of retaliation and bias. And Jacob, we were talking about that together. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just, thank you so much, Emma. I was just going to say that theme was really prevalent in all of our responses around the idea of, you know, the social construct as a Black male as scary or intimidating, and even just having individual level conversations with the difference in how they were received when they wanted to do something, let's say for their school or classroom. If it were from a colleague, perhaps it would be more well received, and it's innovative and something that's really engaging to students and, you know, authentic. Whereas if they were doing it, well, you know, maybe that was something that needed to be more well thought out, or consult an administrator before you would, you know, do this in your classroom. So there's really this feeling of that seemed to hinder their confidence in executing their vision for their individual classroom or their site. I think I'm on the right page there, Emma, but I wanted to bring it back to you in case you wanted to address the last component before we moved on.
Yes, yeah. So one of our, you are totally on the track of what I was thinking. So one of the questions was, what, you know, in terms of your principal, like what would be essentially a supportive space, right? And so people were looking for opportunities to have administrators listen to what it was that they were concerned about or thinking. They were seeking more Black representation in particular. It was most of the folks who responded, you could see, worked at schools where there were principally people of color, right? Like they said, almost everyone is a person of color at my school site. Nonetheless, there's a sense, right? There aren't enough Black educators at the school. And then I thought we struggled with how to name this, but what we kept hearing in the responses, or in our head hearing, right? We kept seeing this theme about a development of cultural competence around the Black lived experience, a desire to have administrators be better educated and other teachers be better educated around this experience. Okay, and then Jacob, I think you're up for the quotes.
All right. So just wanted to share a couple of the open-ended quotes that folks chose to share on the survey, because we thought that they were pretty powerful. So just give you a moment there to read what's on your screen. So it was really nice to read that first quote because it really got directly to this individual's why. And I think tapping into folks' why, whether it be through an affinity space, PD space, whatever it might be, that's really how you get that authentic engagement. And so it was, nice to see that there as that motivating factor. And then, the second piece speaks to exactly what Emma referenced, right? Like this idea that there's a need for some sort of training or something systematic that would help address the fact that many folks in supervisory positions or in positions of power are making Black educators feel in this way. And I think, that just speaks to, if people are truly feeling this way, then we don't have a whole lot of hope for retention and then robust recruitment, right? And so, it really gets right at the heart of what we need to do in order to make our schools and offices a more affirming space for early career Black educators, so that this might be a profession that they feel sustains them, and that we are an employer of choice, that there are things that we are proactively doing that make them feel like this is where they would want to be. And so we thought that these two quotes were powerful. And before I move on, I just want to give some love to Dr. Ippolito for really working with us to create this survey and the importance around hearing and honoring teacher voice. I think these are things that we thought that we knew and that we kind of skirt around, but until you get it directly from the educator's mouth in that safe space, that's really what we can use to inform our practice and take it back to our leadership to say, like, okay, now we have this data, what do we want to do next? So can we please move on to the next slide? All right, so real quickly, so in terms of next steps, we've identified a few. The first one is that, we are members of the National Center for Teacher Residencies. And part of the reason why we did that is we wanted to apply to be a part of their Black Educators Initiative. And this is really going to help us do two things. One, it's going to help us to support 16 Black residents across two partners, including UCLA, to make sure that the cost of attendance isn't a burden or a reason why someone isn't choosing a program that allows them to be fully prepared in the program of their choice. But as a part of our proposal, we learned that these spaces are so important that perhaps we might need something that is specific to pre-service teachers. And so what we're planning on doing with part of the funding is hiring a facilitator that will run an affinity group that is specifically for these members. And as a condition of them, being a recipient of this funding, that they would then participate in these sessions. And so we hope that not only will this help us increase retention and improve their experience, but that we'll also be able to pull some good data from these folks so we can learn from this and say, like, okay, how can we replicate it? How can we do it better? What other spaces is it necessary for us to pull into? So with that, I want to hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Johnson, to speak about part of our career ladder program.
Yeah, and so the second thing we identified as the next step is, when we're looking at, the recruitment and retention of Black educators, we have to acknowledge that, one of the reasons that this is such a pressing issue across the country is that Black pre-service educators are grossly underrepresented at both the undergraduate and graduate teacher preparation level. And so, drawing on the strength that we have as a district, which is our diversity, and our classified staff is, we have one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse teacher workforces in the state of California, but our classified workforce is even more diverse and has a much larger critical mass of Black potential educators. And so working with not only our classified employees, but our students as well, and identifying, we have a program within our career ladder, which is our paraprofessional to teacher pipeline program. We have a program within there that works with our high school juniors and seniors who are, for the most part, in linked learning education pathways. And we actually, my team is out there today at one of our schools, having these conversations with kids, getting them excited about careers in education, preparing them to become paraprofessionals when they graduate. So that way we can support them through our career ladder program, provide them with financial reimbursement and other support, as well as individualized mentorship to help them become teachers. And so we've expanded our Educators of Tomorrow program this year to 2 additional high schools that have a significant Black student population in order to be able to provide more access to this program to our young students who one day we hope will become our teachers as well.